UK Cinema History, Episode 3. Caravaggio, directed by Jarman, with Yassi, Soufi, and Sila Blume.
Hey everybody who's listening on replay, because nobody's in the room yet. I'm just waiting for my co-host Yassi to show up, and we can start discussing Jarman's Caravaggio and what Jarman means for queer cinema in general. So here we go. Yassi will be here in, I just got a message from her, in 3 minutes. I'm in there now. So yeah, so this is just keeping it from being dead air, basically, for anybody who happens to be listening on replay. So hi everybody. What are you wearing? Okay. Anyway, what we didn't have much of a turnout last week. We did have a few more RSVPs this time, so we'll see how many actually show up. But if it's just Yassi and me discussing this film, that's great for me too. I don't care, because I just love having anybody to discuss film with. So if you're listening to this on replay and have any questions or want a kind of extended discussion, I'm ETROM as in Michael, M as in Michael, ATER on X, or the platform formerly known as Twitter, and you can just get a hold of me there through PMs, or else you can go on to our Facebook page, which is UK Cinema History. And there's Yassi. Hey, hooray! All right, how's my co-host doing today? You awake there, Yassi?
Eric, do you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, good. Hi. I was like going to restart. Okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to discussing this film. I think I'm going to wait a few minutes to see if anybody comes in, but if they don't, oh well, they're lost.
Exactly. I mean, more than a loss. Because what happened? I mean, I watched it last week. Monday. Because I had no idea I was going to. It was shock. I didn't think this a movie like this. But I was I told you, like exactly, my mouth was open, flabbergasted. I looked like Medusa.
Caravaggio's Medusa?
Continue watching. It was so beautiful. Everything, music,
Yeah, Yassi, you might want to move around a little bit. I think you're breaking up. We'll have some Sila type silence here for a moment, I guess. Hello, Kathy. How are you? I'm going to invite you to speak, but it's not obligatory. We're just waiting. Yeah, Yassi was experiencing some technical difficulties, so she's just moving to a different room to get a better signal, and then we'll get to start discussing the film. Can you repeat that?
Better? My goodness.
I think the clubhouse phrase is "You sound like you're in the Matrix."
Why?
That sounded better. Try again.
Good afternoon, Yassi. Good afternoon, Eric.
Thank you for coming, Sila. We're gonna wait just a couple of minutes to see if anybody from the RSVP shows up before we get started. So I know how you appreciate silence, so we're going to try it for just a minute.
Yassi, I don't know where you are, but we also have no clue where you are.
Oh no. Why?
That's better.
Okay, you're out of the Matrix. Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm going to go pull the link for the Facebook page because it has an interview with Derek Jarman that Yassi found on it, and I'm going to put that into the chat. We're not going to be very link heavy today. I'm not doing this as a heavy research project, and so
Post. One is about almost all the movies made about a painter, an artist, and like from Milos Forman's Goya's Ghost to the girl with the pearl earrings, like almost all. That was a very good link. So I'm going to post that. And a few about like Caravaggio's life. If someone was interested for a quick read, they can go read. I'm going to post them.
And that's why I put her in charge of all of that. I picked the right co-host. You're back in the Matrix there. Sorry to say, Yassi.
It sounded like computer music from the 80s.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking it had like a New Order beat to it, like dum 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 da da bum bum. But even in the Matrix, you have a very beautiful voice, Yassi. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to get started. Yazzy's putting links in, but I do encourage everybody to go check out our Facebook page. It's UK Cinema History on Facebook. There's always videos and pictures and things like that to kind of go with what we're discussing. So since there's only three of us, I'm going to first start out with a quick kind of go around and ask Yazzie and Sila what they think about thought about the film. I am going to start with Sila simply because of Yazzie's having some technical issues, and it might give her a chance to iron them out. So, Sila, was this your first time seeing it?
This was my very first time seeing it. The first thing I will say is, excuse me, I'm very impressed. For example, when Yassi spoke about this link that focuses on films, mostly about painters, immediately I thought about Gerhard Richter, who is one of my very favorite painters ever. And there's a very good film about him. It was done not very long ago. He's quite old already. But the film as such, the it's just a documentary. It's straightforward, a documentary, and it catches a lot of the essence of how he thinks and how he works, his studio, his family. This film, Caravaggio, the reason I say that is because in Caravaggio, I see one to one the content of the film reflected in the film. In other words, the mood of the paintings that we know from that time, and especially from Caravaggio, are the same moods that we see throughout the film in their interaction to with whomever that may be. It doesn't matter if it's on the streets or in a castle dealing with the whoever the what's that called, the Pope, and I like that very very much. I don't think that's easy to make. I was wondering if I think of Almodovar, I don't think he would ever achieve that because his signature does not go with Caravaggio in any way. Yes, we could put it and say, well, that's typical Almodovar, and praise him for being able to combine the two. But in the way that Derek Jarman was able to replay the complete sense, mode, stimulation, decadence, filthiness, everything that we know from Caravaggio, to me, it's is the mood of the film, and I really enjoyed that.
Because at its heart, this is a biopic, and normally biopics suck. Am I wrong? I mean, normally a biopic is just, you know, um, like horrible to watch. But this one stays fascinating all the way through. Now, of course, most of the actual facts of Caravaggio's life that are used are either disputed or actual bullshit. But as Silo so wonderfully pointed out, the essence is true. You get the heart of Caravaggio from this because the story that's created around it, while maybe it didn't happen that way, could have, given the character that you feel through his painting. All right, I'm going to go turn to Yazzie. And Yazzie, this I know was your first time seeing the film, and you were impressed enough by it that you actually read a book by Caravaggio to study up for this room, which is why I consider this whole thing to be kind of a joint project between me and Yazzie, because she did really the lion's share of the work here.
Oh, thank you. That means to me for a very long time. But the sacred and profane. I've been meaning to read that for a long time. Caravaggio is one of my dad's favorite artists. Actually, he loved Renaissance and it just I the go also uh,
Yazzie, I'm afraid you're back in the Matrix. Sila, is she chopping up for you too?
Yes, yes. There was a time in the middle where it went okay, but the beginning and the end right now, it's completely we understand absolutely nothing.
I'm going to give you a chance to kind of wander around and find a better signal and go to Herbert. If not, I'll just do a plot summary to kind of stall for time so that we can make sure that we can actually hear what you're saying, Yazzie. Because as you well know, your opinion is very important to me. So, hey, Herbert, how are you? Haven't seen you in almost 5 minutes.
Well, I've got to go. I want to go to another room for a few minutes now. I'm overbooked this afternoon. I have some chores, and then I found 2 rooms. That just the time escaped me or whatever. So I haven't seen Caravaggio. So I remember seeing previews or something about it. I guess back in 1986. That was a long time ago for me. And I didn't know who Caravaggio, however you say his name, was. He was a painter.
You're
Correct?
close enough. It's Caravaggio. It's Michelangelo Caravaggio.
Oh, is he the Michelangelo we all know?
No. This is more of a 17th century figure. He died in 1610, and the majority of his paintings were between 1595 and 16. Well, let's see. He got kicked out of Rome in 1607, and he did his most famous work around 1607 when he was in Milan.
1610, you said? The 17th century, you said, okay.
Yeah. So he's a later figure. He's a late Renaissance figure. So he would be more of a contemporary of like Marlowe and Shakespeare.
And Hobbes.
Yeah. Well, I guess while we wait for Yazzie to find a better signal, I'm going to do a quick plot summary before Herbert leaves. So the film starts with Caravaggio dying of lead poisoning. As an older man, and being attended by his servant Jerusalem, who is shown in flashback as having been bought as basically a slave, and it's an interesting coincidence because a couple of months after finishing this film is when the director Jarman was actually diagnosed with HIV, which would eventually be what took his life in 1994. The film was released in 1986, and he would actually retire to a very similar cottage under a nuclear power plant called Prospect College in Kent, and basically kind of fade away the same way as may remember as being King Arthur in the 1980 Excalibur version that Borman did, and a quick summing up of the plot. Caravaggio is basically taken in by a cardinal who. And the name of the cardinal is Francisco Maria del Monte, who is a great patron of the arts and who discovers that he has got a great talent for painting because he takes away an illegal knife that Caravaggio has, and this knife becomes very important throughout the film with the motto on it, without hope or fear in Latin, which was actually Caravaggio in real life's motto. And to get the knife back, Caravaggio offers a portrait, and he becomes a portraiture artist for the growing number of churches in the late Renaissance for the Catholic Church. But he hires street musicians and prostitutes and beggars to be his models for these. And we see his technique maturing, and we see the models recreating some of Caravaggio's great work. In this version, which is based on his great rival Baglioni's biography of Caravaggio, which, let's face it, was not necessarily true, since Baglioni had every single reason to attempt to smear Caravaggio. He is somebody who is known throughout Rome as being openly bisexual and having affairs with both men and women. In the film, not in real life, a street fighter named Mercutio and a prostitute he pimps for named Lena are spotted by, Lena, are spotted by Caravaggio, and Caravaggio says he, and I quote, wants to paint him and to fuck him, and attempts to use them as models. And to kind of cut to the chase, a love triangle ensues. And because of the notoriety that Lena gains as a model for several of Caravaggio's paintings, she attracts the attention of a wealthy man played by Robbie Coltrane named Schiavone, and becomes his lover. And she returns to announce that A, she is pregnant, and B, that she's going to make a life with Schiavone. She ends up dead, murdered, drowned, and Recuncio is arrested and accused of the murder. Caravaggio uses his influence with the papacy and to get him released from the charges. And as soon as he's released, Renuncio admits to the crime and says he did it because he thought that she was coming between him and Caravaggio. Caravaggio angrily, using the exact same knife, cuts his throat and kills him. And then we are taken to back to his deathbed scene, where he's dying of lead poisoning that he contracted from the paints that he uses. And he is asked for that same knife, which he puts between his teeth. And upon his death, which is witnessed by Gerusalemme and the servants around him, they raise his body and do a complete recreation of his largest and most famous work, the raising of Lazarus, with each person acting as if they were the model for that, and Lazarus's body being replaced with Caravaggio's. And now we're not told whether that is Gerusalemme's fantasy, whether that is Jarman's commentary, or whether he's saying that's actually what happened. But a couple of facts that are true: he did kill a pimp that was named Recuncio. However, Recuncio was more than a pimp; he was a gangster. There's no and the only reason that we think that he had anything to do with a prostitute who was actually not named Lena is from this biography by Baglioni, who you see throughout the film as kind of a gossip reporter about him, who's always, you see that one of the several anachronisms in the film, you see him in the bathtub typing a letter to the papacy, like he was head of hopper reporting on gossip. But that's where all of that comes from. However, that wasn't his first run-in with the law. In real life, this was a man who got into several fights and served in time in jail several times for cutting people in fights. So, so while it may not be the actual facts, it does give us the sense of the kind of, as elegantly put, the decadence of his lifestyle. So that's a quick plot summary there. Yazzie, let's hear you speak and see if you've got a better better.
Sounds like you're humming to me. Not a very good connection.
Not again. Still can hear me?
You sound
Great.
great.
Yeah.
You sound
Now
great.
it's
Oh,
Okay.
do
better.
I? Oh,
Now
okay,
it's
okay.
good.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
stay here and I'm
Go.
not gonna
Yeah.
move
Go.
one step.
Don't move an inch. Don't move an inch, Yazzie.
No,
Okay.
I won't.
Okay.
I'm like
Yazzie,
okay.
tell all, admit nothing.
Okay, so what I wanted to say was that I read the Andrew Graham Nixon's book, Caravaggio, the life of Profane, and it's such an amazing book. Actually, it was a gift from my father. He's a fan of high Renaissance Baroque and
Go back to where you were standing.
Can't make out a thing. I hear only silence.
Well,
no
Yazzie.
idea. How about now?
Okay, now you sound perfect. Great. You
I'm
sound
not
great.
moving at all.
Well. Nope, you're back. You're back in the matrix. Good gosh, we're well. This is going well. Let me do. All right, I'm going to do a quick biography of the director, Derek Jarman, and while I'm doing that, we'll then we can come back to Yassi. So this is a very casual event. You know, there's not a lot of people here anyway, so you know we can do that. But before I do that, hey Sila, I'm going to ask you the question that I gave you kind of the heads up for. The score and the music for this and its use of anachronism. How did that hit you? Things like the use of a jazz quartet for the papacy musicians and things like that. But the blending of sound effects into the soundtrack to create the music unto itself. You know, as somebody who's got a background in music and is very sensitive to overblown soundtracks, how would you rate this one?
So I will start by saying that there are basically two ways in the so-called, at least as the Germans call it, serious music, which means basically classical music. In classical music, which we don't count really André Rieu, even though he has an orchestra and he plays the violin, but I don't think he's usually seen as a classical musician, just like Liberace was not seen as a classical pianist, even though he was playing classical music. So, in classical music, in serious music, you usually have what we might name accompaniment, which it always is when you have a voice, unless you think the voice is not the center. But the the thing, one aspect of so-called art songs, Lieder in German, is that in a way you are not playing accompaniment to the voice. The piece is composed with both sides being essential. and that's one thing I used to like a lot about Nina Simone. A lot of times when she played and sang at the same time, she was not, in my way of thinking, she was not accompanying herself. She was doing something in the piano, and that happens to be parallel to what she's singing, but she's not doing chords, stupid chords on the back, so I have something to fall upon when I'm singing. This particular film, to me, brought that very brutally to mind. That, first of all, I view the whole piece, and that's another aspect which has nothing to do with music. To me, the whole piece, in the hands and in the mind of Derek Jarman, is a chamber piece for the theater. It's not a film, it's not a video. For me, the way he set it up, in every single possible way, colors, lighting, sequences, repetitions, everything to me is a play for a chamber situation. And the music works the same way. It is a chamber piece where there is zero, and I repeat, there is zero music in the background. Everything I hear in terms of music, in terms of sounds, are almost like an art song where the piano is supposed to go with it, or a piano concerto where you have the orchestra, because the composer composed both with weight. And background music for me is something that is just like a like very fancy toilet paper covering the wall. In this case, I am very, very content, very happy to have heard, first of all, the volume coincides with what's going on in the wording. There's nothing being less of volume because the person has to be heard. When they play music, it's a very different concept to Bergman in his films, and also very different to the idea that Dogma 10, Winterberg, and Lars von Trier had with Dogma, where you had music in the films only when the music was played in the scenery. Meaning, if we hear music, then a pianist will sit at the piano and play, and that's the only way we hear that, unless you go and play a record. But there's nothing going on in the background. It's always part of it. And to me, this was very, very different to that, but very valuable to hear that I am actually using. I can't remember the name of the guy. I think it's Fisher something, the one who composed the music.
Yeah,
It's
Simon Turner Fisher, who scored most of Jarman's works.
okay. So it's not only the work. Of course, it's the work of both. The concept of Jarman saying, I want the volume to be here, I want the volume to be here. And besides that, the music itself is I can only say it that way. It is a very well organized accompaniment, but better than an accompaniment, which is an accompaniment is, as I tried to explain before, a lot higher than background music. Background music has nothing. I don't care how much Hans Zimmer has conversation, might even go to bed with any of these guys. I don't care. The music is background and it's rubbish because it has no connection, even though he tries to replicate the sentiment and the mood. And when you see this, you have to hear violins. No, Jarman doesn't do anything of that. It's just a classical music piece or a chamber piece or jazz, whatever you want to call it. And it is an intricate acoustic part to the scenario that we're seeing, but like a piece that belongs together, just like a quartet, a string quartet. Yes, you have the principal musician who's the violinist, but the composition, the composer is the one who determines all four must have weight in some way, even if one is silent in a certain spot. But now I'm speaking too much. But I think it is an excellent example, number one, of how to use music as an essential part and not as a background deterrence or underpainting or untermalen in German they say untermalen meaning yeah to just carry it a little bit when you're scared you have to play the violins in a certain way period. I disagree with that, but I loved it.
You barely notice the music at some point, at certain points, and at other
I
points it
wouldn't
seems to.
say that. I wouldn't say that. I think it is
I barely noticed.
extremely important, and that's how it's played. You might not notice that what you're reacting to is the music, but you are reacting to it. I think it's very present, but in its place, not under and not over. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, that's fine. I was going to check and see if
Well,
Yassi, say a few
am
words
I?
and see.
Am I? Is it finally? I
You are
am.
loud and clear, my dear.
Oh
Please,
goodness.
I'm
Oh, I
dying to
am.
hear what you think of
I am.
Caravaggio.
Okay, fine then. So, yeah, I'm gonna like skip all the introduction, and I'm going straight to where I wanted to say. I want to say, comparing the the book I read and all knowledge of
Okay,
the real.
I spoke too soon and I jinxed it. You're back to the Matrix.
How is this even possible?
I
Because
don't know, but that was loud and clear. That was great.
I'm
Okay,
not moving.
that was great. Stay angry.
You are too excited about life, Yassi. Just relax,
Oh,
please.
you're right. Maybe it's true. I have to like. Anyway, so compare movie to the real character, the real artist. What I found, and it was the criticizing the historical basis of the film. What kind of, if it's called a biopic, is that? And what I found was that the the film is like the intention. The movie, if you want to see the reality of the artist, pay attention to the way of the lighting and how natural it
We're back in the Matrix. Gosh darn it.
is. I seriously don't know what's going
I'm gonna drill. I can't hear you. I'm afraid. I'm gonna drill Sila on a different point and um, give you a chance to maybe find a spot that I don't know, closer to your router or something. I'm not a technical person. I barely know how to turn the television on. So what did you think of the use of anachronism in the film? The fact that there are radios, that there are cars, that Renati is working on a motorcycle, that there are electric lights at the bar, that the music itself is anachronistic in many scenes, using maybe not modern day, but 1940s style. Uh, um, uh, 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 I'm not going to say big band because it doesn't sound like big band, but and especially with the clothing. Now, I'm going to make my point and then turn to Sila, but I think this goes with the spirit of Caravaggio because, of course, he painted his biblical figures wearing for then modern day clothing. So anachronism was a part of Caravaggio's work, and I think Jarman is drawing on that. But did it bother you at all in the film?
I believe I noticed it for the first time when this person, who I don't know who he is, but he's having a conversation with the cat. I'm sorry. I believe he's having he has he's a little bit chubby. He's in his 60s. He's having a conversation with the cardinal, I think. And in between what he's trying to say at the beginning, he starts to play with a what looks like a calculator from the 70s, a very flat calculator, and he has this kind of a metal pen utensil that he keeps making sounds with it, and it looks like a calculator. And that's the first point where I noticed, what what is this? What are these modern technology devices doing in this film, especially about something that happened 300-400 years ago? So that's the first time I noticed it, and then I realized with the motorcycles and a few other things. Um, I think I know much too little about Derek Jarman. I've been aware of his name for many years. I'm familiar to some extent from the 80s or 90s where I became familiar with him about, I think it's a movie or a phase in his work where he worked with the color blue. So I know a little bit about him, but not enough. And I saw the film for the first time yesterday. So I really think I would have to look at it more times before I say I don't grasp what, but it that to your question, it did not bother me. I just accepted it right away as some conceptual necessity of adding this layer to the film.
Okay, I'm gonna get this is a test,
Okay.
Yazzie.
Is it?
Oh
Is
my
it? I'm
God,
so sorry. I have
you
no
sound
idea
so
what's
great.
happening. Okay,
Okay, you sound
but it
so great.
always starts good, but I don't know what's going on. Okay, anyway, so
I will
if
tell
he
you this.
if
Calm down, Yazzie. If we still have these problems, I will reschedule this room to make sure that you're here,
oh my
and,
god,
and we
no,
will
please.
and we will do this
Oh,
again. I promise.
so thank you. Okay, hopefully it all goes good. So I'm sorry wasting your time. So what I was saying was that what if comparing his the real artist to another artist's look and take of that life. First of all, the period of time that Derek Jarman picked, like comparing to the reality of Caravaggio, who was always in run. What was so striking to me was that why he decided to make this 2 years between 1602 and 1604 of his life to like portrait in his movie. And then I thought it mostly goes back to the budget of the film, perhaps, because he didn't have the budget to send the artist in the trips and in like into Runaway. So he decided to, and then he works 7 years on this script, and which Tilda Swinton said something very beautiful about that. And she said, when an artist is working on his work, he goes into like isolation, and then he comes out of this cage. And Derek Jarman was like that. It was like a flower in a bud, and then he blossomed when he was at work. So he comes at work, and what he does is he puts all his feelings and the reality, I mean, the essence of the artist and what this artist is known for, which is the chiaroscuro and the lightness and the dark, and he portrays that. He and the way that the lighting mirrors the tenebrism of Caravaggio is spot on. It's sublime. What Derek Jarman did, in my opinion, is that he is faithful to Caravaggio as an artist, not to the art history or to history in general. That was what I wanted to like start saying. And then the other thing that I really liked was that then I don't know how much you like talked about it, and it's the how he some how we go, like sometimes we relate to some work of art because to a movie because we find ourselves in them. Maybe some critics says that's not the right approach to movies because it's not, but it's a personal take. If I'm going to write a review or I'm going to like rate a movie, yeah, I'm going to do it based on the movie's merit. But my personal feeling and my personal take is what, first of all, the Derek Jarman's pick. Like he picked Caravaggio. Why? Because, and how he does that, like we see in the camera moves, how slowly camera moves into like to the darkness and like merges out of the darkness as the Caravaggio walks into these rooms and like through the days and nights and while he's painting, like when he go into his mind and out of his mind when he's drawing and he's making those paintings. It's so subtle and smooth that for certain moments you're gonna ask yourself, was there a motorcycle or a bike in 17th century? Was there newspaper? Was there a typewriter even invented in 17th century? And I think that also mirrors how people at the time looked at Caravaggio's paintings, how unconventional and the innovation and controversial and different they looked was exactly the same feeling as we put a typewriter or a truck in 17th century. And but that was
Oh, and the
reality.
clothing, Yassi, and the costumes. The Panama hat. He wears the
I'm
fedora.
gonna go to costumes because
Oh,
I
my
wanted to
fault.
talk
I'm
about
sorry I
Sandy
interrupted.
Powell.
Keep going.
No, please interrupt me because I can go and on and on and on. And no, I wanted to say the persona. I mean, when I talk about the Caravaggio himself in relate and the relate, like what part of this artist appeal to Derek Jarman is like the persona, the sexuality, the controversial, and how you like mold this clay that you have, the material that you have, and like portray it, show it is I kind of like, it's the, I said it like the essence is the it's not history, but the what is remain for us throughout history from Caravaggio, which is the pieces of art that are timeless. Derek Jarman depicted that timelessness of the artist, not that where did he eat, where did he like did that, to whom he talked to, what, no, he depicts the timelessness and the persona and the art and the beauty of the artwork. That's why it's called tableau vivant. It is like literally tableau vivant. It can't get any better than this. And with the colors and the depth and something I put in the chat is they call, I didn't know that they call Caravaggio the first filmmaker, because they say the depth that he achieved from this two-dimensional art, like he put all these colors on the black background, he could create the movement, like if we feel like that bowl of fruit is coming out of the painting to us. Cubism tried to do that. We see it a lot in like the demoiselles of Avignon of Picasso. But what happens here is, for the first time, and with this kind of like high renaissance that he does, what he does and how he achieves this uh, with the lights and perspective on the canvas, it's like he turned this two-dimensional art into a three-dimensional form. That's why he's called like a first filmmaker, and I really like that. And I thought that should be a great pick for any filmmaker to like look at like visual art and how they're relating to motion pictures.
And so, something that Jarman is also doing is tying Caravaggio into European film history,
Oh,
and
Parajanov,
especially
Parajanov, right?
well, and the co-writer, of the screenplay was, of course, Suzo Cecchi Di Macchio, who co-wrote the screenplays for The Bicycle Thieves, all of the Visconti films, um, uh, Michelangelo Antonioni's first film, Le Amici, got big deal on Banana Street. I mean, you can't do European film history without her, and that's his co-screenwriter. But the two filmmakers I really tie into, both Caravaggio and Jarman's work in general, would be Visconti, and especially like a film like Senso. I really felt like, I was feeling the colors the same way I did with Visconti. And his fellow outspoken homosexual filmmaker and LGBTQ hero, Pier Paolo Pasolini. And like, as beautiful as the set pieces are and the set design and what have you, you can taste the dirt in each scene in Caravaggio, just like you can in a neorealist film. You see the dirt on the bottom of people's feet, and you see the dust fly through the scenes, and I think it really ties it into a different history of a different art form, and one of the reasons I think that most of the anachronisms go back to the late 1940s is because that, of course, is when the neorealist movement started. Wouldn't you say? Because you're reminded of Bicycle Thieves when you see him leaning on that green truck, because it looks like something from that period. The fedora that he wears is something that was in fashion from that time. The man who wearing the big yellow banana hat, that looks like something straight out of The Leopard, which took place, of course, in the 1870s. But and
I can.
no, I'm
I'm
done.
sorry.
I wanted to draw on, because I know you know a lot about this history, and I wanted to draw on that as kind of a talking point for you.
But thank you. No, I wanted to say I understand what you're saying, as like the aesthetic of this film is so like the opulence of Visconti film translate into Renaissance, for example. It looks like 40s and 50s translated into the Renaissance period. But what you just said, and I said Parajanov, because I thought about the color of pomegranate sometimes in the film, because I was thinking of the shots of nude bodies, that how like the camera and color of pomegranate like still camera, and it's like enjoy it. It's as a painting. It's a painting. That's how I related like this to. But what I was thinking was that I said the low budget was, I don't know if you were when we were doing Maya Deren movie in Understanding Movies. There, Maya Deren says something really nice, and she says that if you don't have the budget, if you don't have anything for like create in her film theory, she says the artist doesn't even need like a tripod. Your hand is your tripod. Your legs are your tripod. All you need is a camera. And I think that is for my very like new understanding of Derek Jarman. I thought that if it was me and I wanted to make a movie about Caravaggio, all I was thinking was that how should I put this runaway, escaping man, chain him into my frame and my composition with the budget I have? And I thought to myself that this is a man that nothing can stop him from making for creating what he had in mind. And what he the thing what he does with Tilda Swinton, and you mentioned the costumes, which is extraordinary. I mean, the how like I was thinking like the how much we can only and only talk about the how uh Tilda Swinton Lena looks only with the costumes, with nothing but the costumes, for the first half of her appearance and the second half of her appearance, and how
That's so great. That's that. Yes, yes. Oh my God, that is
it's
so great. And
amazing.
yes,
I mean, can you even and how like she, she looked at the first, she looked so masculine and like the curd, and then with the headscarf almost like covering her hair, you could like look at it and says like, okay, that's a young boy, based on the history that we know from the artist, from our like pre our like what we know, and uh, and then what happens, this this is like what we were talking about, Pedro Almodovar, that sometimes like gay men, they depict something from, they show something about women that is like, for me as a woman, it's like so striking and amazing. Like when she says that she's pregnant, when we find out that she had sex with both Caravaggio and Renuccio, and she realizes that she's pregnant while she's like modeling, and like she raises her, and that's when she like put her hair down and the dresses change, and then the look, we suddenly see that like the shine, and like it's like
and
the
her character
light,
and her character
and
changes.
in the character she turns into a like a kind of like a total, the conventional, the known woman, the stereotype of a woman that everyone like expected, and that was so and then she
Because she's
turns
become
back,
part of that class. Because she has changed class.
and
Because
she talks about it, and then she looks at the camera, and when she breaks the fourth wall at that point, like she turns her head and then look inside the camera through the lens to us, and I was like kind of and then now it was the first time, like what Sila was saying, that you don't feel the music, and you said but we feel the music. That was the moment that I start hearing that new wave jazz music. That was the moment when she looked into the lens. I totally felt what it means, like that Brechtian fourth wall that everyone's talking about. That's it. Because I start hearing the music suddenly. Before that, it was all image. And then I saw Tilda Swinton that I used to know. I saw that woman. And I said, how did that happen? In a blink of an eye. She just it was so
well, let's
beautiful. It was so
take a moment
beautiful.
to draw Derek Jarman into this then, as the person who's kind of created this, because of course this was Tilda Swinton's first role. It was also Sean Bean's first role. Nigel Terry was a well-known actor, but this was his first time performing, and I mean, he was used to playing kings, and King Arthur, for instance. But Jarman began as a painter. That's how he got into film directing, as a painter, and then he did production design. For instance, Ken Russell's The Devils. He did the set decoration for Ken Russell for that film, who by coincidence we happened to been talking about last week. But when he entered filmmaking in 1975 with Sebastian, the most notable thing about that film, I mean, besides the fact that it's filled with naked men all the way through, was that it was completely done in Latin, because of course it's about the sainthood of Sebastian during the Roman period, and B, the intricate set design on a very, very low budget, which you can't tell by looking at that film or stills from that film that it was shot for a few $100,000 by a first-time filmmaker. Now, do I consider it a great film? No, but it is very, very popular now. And it was actually, and it did not do well at the time. It didn't even make back the tiny amount of money they spent to make it. But now it's actually a very widely seen film among the gay community because it is considered a touchstone of gay cinema because of well, it's homoerotic themes. However, as a straight man, I can watch that film and still get a lot out of it without having to be in touch with because you were speaking as a woman, how perhaps a gay man's touch can bring a woman out. In a way, I can identify with a gay man by watching a film in which he's depicting homosexuality in a positive light, which that film does. Then in 1976, he made a film called Jubilee, where he had Ariel from The Tempest take Elizabeth I forward to Elizabeth II's reign in modern day London. And instead of using actors, he did the neo-realist thing and had amateurs performing the smaller roles. And in the big roles, he had stars of the punk and new wave scene of the time playing those roles. And, Adam Ant from Adam and the Ants, just as an example, was in that film. Jane County was in that film. And I love that film. You watched it too, right? You were saying last night when we were texting?
Jubilee, yeah. I watched
Yassi?
Jubilee, and then I thought that I made a mistake. I had to watch like Edward II or like a movie with Tilda Swinton in, because when I was reading a little bit about Tilda Swinton and Jarman, I saw that this kind of like like flipping like the gender fluid character that we see here is also like in Wittgenstein or Edward II. I thought that I picked the wrong movie because I was so like interested to see his take on the punk scene, which I like. And but I think I must have watched Wittgenstein. That could have been a better. I could like bring up a better discussion when talking about Tilda Swinton in that case. But yeah, like his that's what he was trying to do. That's what Orson Welles was trying to do with Shakespeare. He was trying to put like Shakespeare, bring the Shakespeare back as the cool entertainment that he was at his time to the audience of like contemporary audience, and make it appealing to the audience today. And every time that I see like someone like Jarman or Almodovar, that I said it when we were talking about Almodovar, I said what I love is that he doesn't add a homosexual character or a transgender character or a woman or like different, like anything for the sake of diversity to his story. It's not forced. He understands the place and the right of these people in the world and the equality, and why historically, if we want to look at the character of Caravaggio, is exactly what was happening with, I think Sila can help us in this conversation, like with what was happening with the church and Vatican and the history of Christianity, and like regarding to the artists and people at that time, and like the limitations and everything that was like forcing to people, and like like stopping artists to like create, to do the work freely as they wanted, like liberated as they should be. And you know, you don't have to like tell an artist like how to show Christ. We want to see his art, his touch on the character of Christ, and we want to see that, you know. And or like we want to see the reality of the queer community in the society as they are, as their rightful place to be and to have, not like you force them as a character in the movie, you know, not like tell an artist to how to portray Christ, or like how to dress Madonna, or like how to show like the resurrection, you know, and the disciples. What Caravaggio was doing was that he was trying to make the disciples and Jesus appealing to the people and to the people of Rome at that certain time. And what Derek Jarman was doing was that he was trying to show his community where as the reality of they are.
And but Jubilee was an important film in terms of his second career, which of course is the only thing he was really known in the United States for, which was directing music videos for the upcoming new wave artists like the Pet Shop Boys, the Smiths. Gosh, actually the list goes on and on, but I'm of course having trouble remembering as I do. But
Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah, that and the Smiths are the two most famous anyway, and that actually kind of led to a spate of directors coming out of music video directing. Michael Bay is probably the worst example, but there were some good ones too. You mentioned a couple of last night, Yassi, and because it was you.
Oh, I was saying like Michel Gondry or Spike Jonze, you said, and Isaac Kaufman and Charlie Kaufman. They all started with like music videos, and then they go to feature filmmaking. That's your Michel Gondry, like is my favorite among them. And David Fincher, he started by like making music videos.
The Madonna videos.
Madonna and Michael Jackson. Yeah, he made Who Is It and Take a Bow, and now he's such a great. A lot of them start with that, but from Jubilee to here, the great character in this film is like one of my favorite parts of this film is when he goes to like Scipione, when he's going to like get his pardon to see Scipione, and that like how oh god, I wish I had like written down the exact sentence. He says like, "You're a bad boy." And like that the meeting is great, and what Scipione tells Caravaggio at that scene, and that was the merging from the darkness that I said, like he's going to take the pardon from the Pope finally, and he goes out from the dark. Oh, and then the fact that he's wearing black is also historical and factual, because he was always wearing black, and that was one of the reasons that he was always getting arrested, because it was forbidden, it was prohibited to wear black at night. You were considered as a like a thief, or like someone who is going
up to no
like
good.
Yeah, up to no good. And
which
like,
Caravaggio probably was, given his arrest record. He probably was.
He was looking for it. He was looking for trouble, like the actual meaning of a bad boy. He was. I think he was looking for trouble all the time. Like, at least wear something else, man. What's wrong with
you mentioned the trouble that he had taking it 7 years to make this film, and it really is his very last narrative work. You mentioned he made Edward the second from the Marlowe play, which was mostly shot on 8mm and then blown up to 35 as part of which is what he really got into afterwards, was much more experimental work. This, and then he well, in 1979 he did that version of The Tempest, but most of his film, if you were to look at his career, is much more experimental. And I know you watched The Garden, for instance, which doesn't even have any moving images. And Sila mentioned Blue, which doesn't have any images at all, because the HIV had taken away his eyesight and he couldn't make out figures anymore. All he could see were shades of blue. And that was a mixture of his autobiography as a gay man living in London, suffering from AIDS, with different colored screens. So in a way, Caravaggio is our only real full narrative feature motion picture to judge Jarman's career on. And then from then on, we have to judge him as a much more experimental filmmaker, which is interesting. But it was in 1986, right after filming this, that he was diagnosed with the HIV, and what a loss it was. But he never says this out loud that I've found in any interview. But I think it was just that, fighting the disease, which finally took his life in 1994, was just too much for him to also handle making, a large film, and especially dedicating 7 years of his life to making this one, and the hassles with producers and all of that other type of thing. I think the experimental film was his way of being able to stay relevant as a filmmaker without having to put that kind of effort forth, because he was too busy being very, very sick. And I think there's a tragedy there, that we lost him at the age of 52, and we lost him at his most productive years, that we didn't get to see more of this strain of filmmaking, because I think this is such a great film, number one. Oh, hey, Yelena, thank you for coming. I'm going to invite you up to speak, but it's not mandatory. Anyway, as I was saying, there's no reason why he couldn't have produced several masterpieces in his lifetime, because if you think about it, this was only really his fourth film, and it's such a strong piece of work. And Sila was mentioning all of the things that are under the director's control that he handles so masterfully in here. But and I'm going to turn to Sila, because you said something that I thought was kind of brilliant and yet provocative, that the film existed for you more as more of a series of vignettes and set pieces. But in terms of like the things that it shows off, like the production design and the saturation of the color and the things like that, there's no way of debating that it was very beautiful. But did the film move for you narratively, or did you feel it as more like an animated bunch of still photos and vignettes? Okay, so that seems to have walked away.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to unmic myself.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Sorry. I think if I see the film 2 or 3 times, I'll probably answer very differently to what I might say now, because of the way I read the film the first time. As I said before, I perceived it more as a chamber piece, and what I mean with that is a play in a very small theater, a theater that is more of a chamber, very, very, very uncommercial, somewhat experimental, and very intimate. um, but at the same time, clearly experimental in terms of um, the way I perceive what anybody might call the story, because a story could be pretty much anything. A story could be how I focus on what happens 1 minute in the life of a cockroach, and it could be also what happens in the trajectory of 3 generations of Chinese Americans. A story in terms of what am I seeing as an art piece developing in my mind because I'm watching this film. That story I understood quite quickly. It is dissected, it's more of a collage in the composition of Jarman as to what he sees and what he wants to portray in the sequence we know as Caravaggio. When towards the beginning you see and hear this striking of the brush with the color somewhat black. I would say it was more anthracite, but it's a very dark color. The wetness of this color, and you just see the striking of the brush in one direction repeatedly, then in another direction repeatedly. Also, when you see something that I was thinking about earlier, the body parts, especially the feet and the hands, are usually very moist. And considering a time anywhere between the 1500s and the 1800s, where there was a lot more exposure to filth, and that's the time we're talking about, it's nevertheless very sweaty. It's not just dust. It's just which for me has something to do apparently with the with the sensuality of homosexuality, the sensuality of an artist getting close to its subjects, be it as homeless or boys or girls. But
or
there's
prostitutes.
yeah, but there's a connection that is very moist, and I remember several scenes where you see the very moist hands. Not they're not wet, but they're not dry. So I was many times I was conducted into a time in those times where I'm smelling sweat. And of course, when you're looking at this other person using the calculator in his hand, making this very modern sound, I just had to submit to what I did not know, and that is this guy, who I know only by name, Jarman, is going in time and space back and forth. I don't know the story of Caravaggio. All I know is more or less the style in which he painted. But I think it was, for me, it was very, very good as a first time um, viewing, to see how he worked with the storyline, to see how he worked with combining what this artist is and what the film is.
As long as we take it as a work of fiction, as long as we're not saying this is definitive, because the
To
point
me,
of
that
Caravaggio's life is we don't know. Everything is up for debate. We don't even know if he died of lead poisoning. We don't even know where he died. We don't even know if the bones that are said to be his are actually his.
that is correct, but I don't care about that. All I care is that I know, as much as you could say I know the work of Caravaggio in a certain way, and Jarman is replicating and expanding on this idea of what Caravaggio portrayed as an artist. Did he die? Did he have sex only with brooms and not with men? I don't care. So if that's historically accurate or not, for me, in this art piece, for me, it's not relevant. It is probably relevant for me to know, outside of the enjoyment of the film, that the film touches on things that are not accurately historically. But when I'm watching the piece, I I want to give myself into what Jarman is doing with me, and this has nothing to do with facts. The facts do not make a story anyway.
Well, and that takes me to the performances, because to me, this is a great reflection of Caravaggio through obviously Derek Jarman's life. Because what he is doing is he's taking what we do know about Caravaggio and carving out a believable version of events for him that go with the character that I, as somebody who's seen a lot of his paintings, said, yes, I believe that could be him. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with the performance of Nigel Terry in the main role, because he's not playing Amadeus Mozart, the pampered genius, nor is he's playing a gruff man. And that's what comes across all the way through is, Caravaggio as a no-nonsense, gruff man. And you see him as a child even, when he's hustling the man with the Panama hat, and threatens him with the knife to take his money. That this version of Caravaggio is someone who, my son made a point, which is that Harrison Ford could have played that role and pulled it off very well. It's that kind of
I think so. Yes.
and that goes with the personality of the person I take to have created Caravaggio's work when I look at it. And so whether or not it's factual is irrelevant, because the character that Nigel Terry and Jarman have put on screen is believable to me as that person.
Correct.
Now, and that takes me to the other performances. Now, this is obviously Tilda Swinton's first film, and Sean Bean's, and I believe Robbie Coltrane. I believe this was his first film as well. And of course, they would all go on to have much bigger careers. Swinton would continue to work with Caravaggio up until the day he died. And how good is Tilda Swinton in this film? Honestly, for a first performance, she just, every scene she steals every scene she's in, but she just comes off the screen and lights up the screen, and because the first time that I saw this film, Tilda Swinton was not famous. I had no idea who this woman was, and my first question was, who is that? Because and Yassi, you started to go into this, and I probably interrupted you as I'm apt to do, but just how much better is this film because of the performance of Swinton as Lena, and how believable is she to you?
I said like her appearance and the fluidity and the manner that her manners, and like so in different layers, and she actually brings a layer of mystery to the film with her performance, because I was saying, like, we don't know the whole story, when like after she realizes that she's pregnant, and then uh her death, and then later. So the way that she looks in the mirror, the way that she talks in the second half of her appearance is all. I talked about the persona, and how effective, like, the persona of the Derek Jarman is trying to portray the persona of Caravaggio, not the historic figure of Caravaggio. This is also appearing to Lena. Lena, in history, she's only mentioned in the court records as a girl, as his girl, Caravaggio's girl, and that's it. That's the only real factual reference to this character, which is the model to the Madonna de Lorente, you know? So, and but look what happens here. Like it's first of all, the majority of the film happens with her presence in it, and with how she she's able to like add dimensions and layers to this character and hides it, and then the sexuality, I mean the eroticism that she's able to bring to the character without showing any skin. I mean, that's like, it's impossible like from now on to see that the painting of Caravaggio with the gold coins and not remembering like how they Sean Bean and Tilda Swinton were able to like just transfer that feeling of eroticism only by like back and forth, like having that cold golden coin in their mouth, you know. And that was so beautiful. And her look, you know, her gaze, I think that's so beautiful. And I after that, like when you talked about, I want to talk about two things. One of that's very uh, I thought about it right now when you were talking, and it's, I found suddenly it comes at me like just now how it's similar to the Virginia Woolf Orlando. Has any of you written the book Orlando by Virginia Woolf? It's a, I don't know why, but there is this scene in the book in Orlando that it talks about how Orlando like looks herself in the mirror, and she sees, you know, that Lacanian kind of like self-awareness of the body and the identity. And I suddenly thought of that how much this also here at the scene that Tilda Swinton Lena, she looks at that hand mirror, you know, after like we this is the second half, it happens, you know, we enter that second half of of her character, and she gets to this new realization of herself, new self-awareness, as a like that boyish look to the feminine look. That exactly happens in Virginia Woolf's Orlando. And I think there is a movie based on Orlando. See, Eric, sometimes I don't do my homework and like my homework just comes to me. I have to look it up, but I think that that is so similar, Orlando to Lena. You know, we see it a lot. We see it in other movies. We see it in Boys Don't Cry. But how subtle and neat it happens here, I think it's so important and so beautiful. Like you said, the people that we lost, you know, when you were talking about it, I was thinking like where film history might have gone if people like Jarman or Kubrick were around. And not just, you know, it's devastating to see like these fundamental cultural people that we lost to AIDS during, and not Kubrick, but how many we lost because of the ignorance, because of the superstition, because of the, you know, incompetency, and how the politicians approach an illness and turns it into a moral problem for people, and for like healthcare workers. And that's what happens. And it was, we just experienced it recently with COVID. It was kind of like going the same way, but that was totally different story. And what, like, once again, when politicians like let people down because they couldn't deal with a health issue and turns it into in the public eyes turns it into a superstition and something like made people and also health workers to like distance from people, and then it caused losing a lot of artists in 80 and 90, which is so devastating.
If I may give you my arm to cry upon and relax,
Thank you. I
that
really needed that sometimes.
well, the main thing I want to say with that is that I think we have experienced plenty, very much plenty of individuals who not only at the age of 27 but at the age of 35 or even more died very young. um, we could come up with a list spontaneously of about 50 just in 5 minutes. When you think of Amy Winehouse even making money with the song Rejecting being saved, Rehab.
And I said, no, no, no.
So I'm not saying that they were supposed to stop early. I would never dare to say that. For many reasons, I have no right to say that, and no logic in saying that. But I think what I'm trying to say with offering you my shoulder is that we have plenty of people that show us very clearly we have nothing to worry about. She is one of them because they delivered an incredible amount. And even though I'm not a Mozart fan, you have to consider what Mozart was able to deliver that we still listen to 300 years later, even though he was in his 50s when he died. I mean, we have really nothing to complain about.
Some people do their thing early and then check out.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the other thing is how many artists overstay their welcome and create, become less and less creative or become
That's
more and more
that's a
derivative of
very
their own art.
that's a
Yeah.
very
But
different
like
topic.
And
going back
we
to like
don't know.
we
We don't know. Maybe that would be Jarman's fate.
yeah, but we know that what he could, I mean, we can see right now this movie is the evidence that what that talent of a filmmaker with the power of visual storytelling, you know, this is like what Sila was saying, that he doesn't even care about the history of Caravaggio because of how he can see like that, what I was saying, that the tableau vivant here. And this is the power that someone could do with such a low budget, how we can communicate and like the appeal to so many people, and then just compare it, in contrast to these like big budget films today and the BS that they are trying to communicate, and just put it
Well,
next to this and see.
Jarman was an artist, and I encourage you to. You can look it up online. If you've got a library card, you can actually check out a virtual version of the book from your library to look up the script for this, where it has Jarman's original sketches done 7 years before the film was made, and how much the film actually matches his original sketches, despite the fact that he hadn't cast it yet. And that I think Tilda Swinton would have been 12 years old at that point, so he had no idea, and how much he was able to match those sketches and create it as a motion picture. That's an artist, He didn't stick Sean Bean in this. And actually, if I had to be pushed, I would say Sean Bean's performance is probably the weakest part of this, because in the second part of his performance,
Poor thing.
well, now, in the second part of his performance, he's very. I think he's very strong when he's showing vulnerability. But I didn't believe him as a pimp and a gangster. That took me
Should
some buying into.
I think
I
we
don't know.
should.
Maybe that was on purpose. But I never really felt him as a menace. The way, well, but he is supposed to be portrayed. You see him as a street fighter. You know, he is supposed to be kind of a menacing. I saw him as kind of a decadent. As part of Caravaggio's, eye for beauty and things like that. I didn't see that rough side of him that his character, as we're told he is, would portray. But he physically looks the part exactly right. Yeah, I'm talking about it. His vocal inflections in the film. When I say I didn't buy, but I didn't buy him as a gangster in a film, but he physically looks exactly right. And again, I go back to looking up the original screenplay and how much it matches Jarman's original conception of this film, and how the genius that it takes to keep such a big project in your head and be able to put it out on the screen exactly as you see it, which is not something most directors of film are even allowed to do, because film is such an expensive art form. And how lucky we are to have had an artist to be able to perform at this high a level in that art form. But back to Sila's point about losing great artists too young, and we can't really, counterfactuals don't really do much. We can conjecture about what great works there were, or we can spend our time enjoying the ones that are here now. And one of the benefits of doing this room is I was able to revisit a lot of these films. I haven't revisited Wittgenstein. I haven't seen that in 20 some years. So I will have to get back to that. But I was able to revisit most of Jarman's films, and especially the experimental ones. And his version of the Benjamin Britten War Requiem, which he brought Laurence Olivier out of retirement for. Brilliant in terms of montage. Not a narrative film. It makes its point completely visually, and it doesn't even have its own individual score. He takes a Philharmonic recording from, I think it was 1973 by the London Philharmonic, and scores the film to that. But watching it again, you would think after a while you might get somewhat bored because you don't have any sense of what happens next. And maybe it's because I'm a fan of his work. I was completely sucked into it, and the 90 whatever minutes went by in a flash. Because, and that to me, is the note of a true artist. Had he been fully healthy, and had he been able to get financing for feature films, we wouldn't have this other experimental genre that he created, and we wouldn't have these works. And so there's your counterfactual there. We would have a different version of him as an artist. And so that's why I say appreciate the work that he did do.
In terms of the things he could have done, and in other contexts in terms of funding, I just, the same way I did in one room about Almodovar, I'm just extremely grateful that I have been able to partake in what it means to see that film, to see certain films of Almodovar, to see several films of Bergman, to see Amy Winehouse in a video where she's actually almost dead because she's really, really stoned, but deliver an incredible voice performance that is never. Beyonce could probably deliver 2% with her body and everything. She could probably deliver 2% of what Amy Winehouse is able to deliver when she's really fucked up. I mean, that's how good it was. So I'm just extremely appreciative of having been tempted into seeing this film yesterday because like I said, I had never heard about it. I only knew about the director and about the painter, but not about the film. I'm always very happy to
You're welcome, by the way.
yes. No, really. I mean, it is. I think it's such a great piece. And another thing I meant to say a while ago, I think it's a very interesting point, at least for me, that I'm dealing with this topic for quite a few days now, in terms of what we modern, forget the word modern, what we humans are today, as opposed to what we know of what might have been true 400 years ago or 300, depending on which person you're taking. Mozart, Monteverdi, whoever you want to take. When we consider what it means to be now as opposed to then, one of the things I also found very interesting was to see at least Jarman's portrayal of what it means 3, 4, 500 years ago to be a very respected artist, maybe not necessarily um, a successful one, but at least one that has been spotted by the church or by the state or by the king, and to see how something was taking place that today is actually impossible. If you take Gerhard Richter, who is really respected for the last 70 years as a painter, he could never develop. I mean, it would be very difficult for him to develop a relationship with a pope. Forget the fact that the popes changed in the last few years a little bit too quickly. But this personal relationship that you see between the man or the institution giving the money and the artist themselves, going beyond what they might have been doing in bed privately, that's another topic. But I find that very interesting to be able to see what happens when an artist is so good and at the same time it is so free to do whatever he wants because the church or the state is behind him, and he might be using too much money of what he gets, but nevertheless this high level creativity was not really done in a case of financial need, but in a in an inner need that could be there. It doesn't matter what. But I really enjoyed this aspect of having this painter being able to get work on that level and nevertheless being able to be who he was, his art, his incredible creativity and vision of what it means to paint in a new fashion with very simple topics, but nevertheless on a level that we are still talking about it today.
And I really appreciate you coming, Sila, to express your views on this because obviously when I invited you, it was specifically because we were talking about the type of score that you like, and I immediately thought of Caravaggio. Immediately thought of when you were describing what a perfect score would be like, and immediately said to myself, I want to see if this is actually scores up to what I'm imagining Sila is describing, and roughly you said, yeah, I mean, it's at least 70% of that, but it was a great pleasure because I feel enriched about a film I've seen probably a dozen times, hearing your point of view as a first-time viewer of it. And of course, Yassi, you know how much I respect your opinion, especially when it comes to
Come
film.
on, I just wanted to say, like, I believe it or not, Orlando that I just mentioned, the movie, it is a movie, and guess who made it? Sandy Powell, the costume designer of
Wow!
Caravaggio. Yes,
Oh,
What a
yes,
small
she
world.
made the
Who
movie
plays
Orlando.
who plays Orlando? Is it Tilda Swinton?
of course,
That would be too.
of
Yes,
course. I
yes,
thought you knew
yes.
that.
As a matter of fact,
Oh
yes,
my
she
God!
plays Orlando.
Oh
I'm
my
shocked. I
God!
thought you knew that.
Yes.
Of
And
course, she's her.
I'm stunned. I don't know what to say. But I was, and now that when I was looking for that, I looked for the cardinal, the Pope's coat, and it's beautiful. What the moment that they made, I think that explains everything. Like, even it's so relevant even today, that he look when Caravaggio goes to like kiss his ring, and he looks at him and says that, uh you I heard you're a bit of a rascal. That he goes, "Sir, like, sir, you're a bit of a rascal, one of the family. Scipione says you paint quick, and quick is good." you know but you see, like, how being like an anti-establishment, like Derek Jarman's quality is like how Caravaggio was that. And then he continues, he's saying, like, revolutionary in art can be a great help to us. But of course, as a bugger, you didn't think of that. Keep the quo in the status. Oh my goodness. I mean, that quote, I think that is the climax of that film, of how we are
That
treating art
it's the
today
Borgia
and back
Borgia
then.
popes in a nut. The Borgia popes in a nutshell.
Exactly.
You can
Exactly.
fuck anything that you want, but help us sell the church.
Exactly. Just help
Well,
us sell religion as a, like, commercial. Use the art as commercial to sell, like, their their religion, or like, I don't know what to say. Anyway, one more thing, like, I want to go back to the history facts. This is something in general, nothing to do with this. Just I was thinking about it when I was watching this. Also, like, I was thinking this uh story, like, around artists back then going crazy, or like their character, their violence and anxiety and aggression and all that. I was thinking, could it be all explained scientifically regarding to the paint that they were using, with all those, like, lead and, the chemicals on the paint and everything. And
The
you
theory is
see,
that is what killed him, was lead poisoning.
exactly. I think this is what killed Van Gogh. This is what killed him, and a lot of, like, painters back then, that they will all, and explains their mental state. How you see that he was, like, putting paint on his body, and, like, licking his finger with paints on them. We also hear the exact same stories about Van Gogh, and, like, I
Okay,
thought
but how does
maybe.
that explain how many artists are crazier than shithouse rats today, when we don't have those impurities in them?
They're crazy in a different way today. Like
That was
yeah.
humor. That was humor. Silo, you had a point, and we delayed it, and I hope it's still relevant. I'm sorry. So
oh no problems. Yeah. What was it? I have to think about it because I was caught off guard yet now.
Did I interrupt you? I'm
No, no,
it
sorry.
no, no,
I'm
happens.
no.
so sorry. I
It's
didn't interrupt.
Clubhouse. It's Clubhouse.
I'm sorry.
It's the way it works. Because you get to saying something, and yeah, no. I've never been one of these. Everybody has to wait for their turn. I mean, this is in the kindergarten class.
But now
But
I suggest we watch Orlando one day. Now that
Um,
it's been discovered right now at this very moment.
Here's what I'll do. I'm going to watch it first and see if I find it worth discussing. And if so, we can we should do a room on it. But I'm never going to agree to discuss a film I haven't seen.
There's one
But
thing I don't know if this is an important thing, and I don't know if that's exactly what you had the impression I wanted to say and got interrupted. But there's uh, an aspect that I find quite interesting. This year for me has been a very climactic period when it comes to music in the realm of cinema, because I think something happened. Firstly, oh yes, okay. One of the things that really got me deeper into the aspect of what they call what's a sound scores or music scores for film. Two of the films were the one with Hans Zimmer, Odyssey 2001. Yeah, I think that's it. One was that, where I was studying for myself a little bit what Hans Zimmer did with that. Then this was a period when I was watching a lot of science fiction, and I listened to, or I watched Contact, where I was quite impressed with the idea of using this 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 sound of the contact. There's no music; it's just this vibration going on that goes through the computers, and they are finally able to dissect that a little bit. But those were two steps that I was watching. Then, of course, I have in my memory what I experienced in Germany or in Europe in the '90s about what I mentioned with Dogma 10 or Dogma 95. I keep forgetting their name. And then came my weeks or my days with Beckman, where I studied on a very different level, very new level, how he approaches music. And he does it, in my view, in a very, very, very good way. Then, of course, we have Almodovar, the days with Almodovar that we did. Uh, I think Almodovar is wonderful. I would never give him a single positive point for his music. And then
I disagree, but you knew that.
no, wait. You cannot disagree with me because I'm just talking about how it feels for me. But
Now, fair enough.
But then this was an amazing cherry on top for this experience of what a person like Derek Jarman or his composer, how can music be used without being under painting or above painting, or I keep thinking of under painting because of German. Untermalen, it means to underpaint something. Background music. This does music in the background, which always has a negative feeling because even the term tells you it's in the background. It's only in the background. It's not in the foreground. It's in the background. It has no importance. And then this film surprised me greatly when I started watching it, and I kept seeing more and more how they handle this chamber aspect in a very, very, uh, very unique way. And I just wanted to mention that the year 2023, I've gotten to do some deep experimenting with what it means to use music on cinema. And this film I find absolutely exceptional in terms of teaching, giving a talk about what it means to respectfully produce music to a film?
I think we should end on that intellectual note, because program note, next week's show is going to be on lesbian vampires in English cinema. We're kicking off the Halloween season. And so, yeah, we can't do a Caravaggio every week. We have to have some fun in life. And the other thing is, I have a very valuable asset with Yassi being a co-host, because she has an appreciation for the horror genre that is very, very valuable. And because England has such a long history of producing great horror, to do a room about English cinema or UK cinema in general without touching on the genre would be skipping. So we're going to be doing 1981's The Hunger. That's The Hunger, not Hunger. The Hunger, which is directed by Tony Scott. That's Ridley Scott's brother. And starring David Bowie and Catherine Deneuve. And it is known, at least in America, for its one very small, very tasteful lesbian scene.
And I've been putting out fire like gasoline.
That was Cat People.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, no, this one, David Bowie doesn't contribute to the sound. This one's the Bauhaus film. Boom, 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 white on white, translucent light, Bela Lugosi's. That we're doing that film.
Okay.
And the composer, now that we're talking about the composers, the music is composed by Howard Blake.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes,
I'm learning
that's the Howard Blake score.
I always learn new things with you, Yassi. Yeah, that's awesome.
Come on, we were gonna watch it next week, and you were definitely gonna pick that up. And one more thing that you said this weeks ago, like right now that Sila is digging into 2023 scores. A movie that he will like is John Carney's movie Flora and Son. And actually, his whole movie.
That's a beautiful film. That's my favorite film of the year so far.
And his whole career, Sila, you will like it because he has this modern take on mixing the music through his storytelling. If like this, like we were talking about visual storytelling, he uses songs and music and songwriters and the new generation of songwriters, and use their story and use the diagenic sound, the diagenic music into his music. And that's why like he works with many different songwriters.
Yeah, what was the film he did with Mark Ruffalo that everyone would know the name of, that I can't remember at this second?
It was Once had
Once.
Mark
okay,
Ruffalo.
so that's a film by him you would have heard of. Okay, thank you. I don't know why I was drawing a blank.
Yeah, and one more thing that I know, Sila, you would never going to watch, but from the music point of view, or point of ear, actually, that I found fascinating is this TV series. Ahsoka is a spin-off of Star Wars, and Kevin Kiner is doing the music, which is a very kind of mixture of Eastern, Eastern kind of music, a melange of that with John Williams' score. And the themes that he created. If you don't want to watch Ahsoka, only listen to the score. It's available as an album right now. It's on Apple Music, I think, everywhere. The sound and the motifs that he puts. Just think about it as a music for a sci-fi movie. That's so amazing. And then right now that you like Hans Zimmer so much, let me say something else that I'm keep
Yeah, I
talking
don't think
about
he
the
actually
low
likes
budget.
Hans Zimmer.
Sorry, that's the last one. Low budget. Hans Zimmer does all this music that you love so much with one laptop, with one MacBook Pro in a hotel room. He gets the script, he reads the script, and he creates this on the laptop. That's what he does. And that this
I'm
is what I
happy.
love about him. Like,
I'm happy
so
for him, and I'm glad that he loves his grandchildren.
oh, adorable. Yeah, and then he made his one of his like he's a mentor to one of the uh, young composers today, and is Ludwig Göransson, that I really like, because again his works on the Star Wars, the new Star Wars for Mandalorian and stuff. He also uses a lot of like uh, Eastern themes and motifs in his works, and I really like that. Sorry, that's it. And then please watch Hunger and come talk with us, people in the audience. It's a David Bowie. David Bowie is in it, and it's a fascinating movie. It's great, great. It's a great watch. It's fun and so cool.
And very, very early 80s. I mean, very, very, very early 80s in terms of both the music, the cinema. It brings you right back to that era in terms of everything. But 2 words, David Bowie. That should be enough, right? Right?
Yes,
Exactly, exactly.
with
Exactly.
the
I mean,
except with the
I'm a straight man, but I can understand how Mick Jagger ended up in bed with him. I'm just saying.
no comment. But the only film that I have watched that I thought it was an absolute disappointment with David Bowie was the one with the labyrinth. I found that they were only trying to put the persona David Bowie in the film. I think that was a waste of time.
That whole film was hot garbage. Hey, you remind
Yeah.
me of the Babe. What Babe? The Babe with the power. What power? The power of hoodoo. You do remind me. Oh my God. I'm. Can you tell I raised kids during that era? That film was like on That film was on like eternal loop in my house for I don't know how many years. Too many. But anyway. But that's my horror story. You guys don't have to.
They were like a bunch of wave of those movies. I also like Michael Jackson had one, Moonwalker. David Bowie had Labyrinth. It was like mood,
Yeah,
a movies for mood
a
and
hot
fashion.
garbage
Yeah.
movement. Yes, a hot garbage movement.
Oh, come on.
I am gonna end this room because 7 o'clock has yet again come. So we've spent 2 hours talking about a 90-minute movie, as we do, as is our want. But I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I want to thank Yazzie yet again for co-hosting, and invite everybody back here 5 o'clock next week to discuss Tony Scott's The Hunger, and bring
And
your thinking cap on.
I'm going to end with the sentence on the knife of Caravaggio. Next back, next to means without hope, without fear.
Hallelujah and amen. All right, thanks everybody, and have a great night.
See you all next week, please. It's going to be a fun talk.
Want to join the conversation? Every Thursday, we record on the Clubhouse app. Just follow the link in the episode description, and you can be a part of our panel.